guys, this is Mac again, and today I'm bringing you the beginner's guide to reloading the 300 Blackout cartridge. And I say beginner's guide because I'm a beginning reloader. This is the first time that I've ever attempted to reload my own ammunition, and it's incredibly fun. And when you're talking about a round like 300 Blackout that manufactured costs close to $1 a round, this is a very expensive hobby and a very expensive round to shoot. So today I'm going to take you through my process and what I've been learning here and how I can get the cost of my 300 Blackout down to about 25 to 27 cents a round, which is much more doable and actually is cheaper than most of the brass 223 that you can buy. So it's insane to think that you can shoot the 300 Blackout cheaper than you can shoot 223. So I had a lot of good feedback on my 300 Blackout build series, so I just wanted to continue along in that series of videos, and let's go over reloading some cartridges in the 300 Blackout. So first off, before you jump into reloading, I would suggest that you definitely do quite a bit of research and actually meet and talk to people who are very good reloaders. I've been thinking about reloading probably for several years now before I've jumped into it, and I'm fortunate that I have one of my best friends who is an expert reloader, and he knows this stuff inside and out. He actually has a YouTube channel here too, and I'll link him in the description. His username's Dr. Jared. He is really good at reloading, and I've bounced ideas off him a million times before I've actually jumped into this, because this is something that safety is of the utmost importance. And it's very easy to load up a bad round that can blow up and injure you or worse. So first off, make sure that you know what you're doing and make sure that you're safe when you do this. I started out with a very inexpensive single stage press here. This is a Lee breech lock. I've had numerous people tell me, including Jared, that first time reloaders are best served by starting out on a good single stage reloading press before they get into multi-stage presses and progressive stage presses, because you learn the basics and the process of reloading much better when you're going one step at a time. It gives you time to process everything. So this is one of the more inexpensive ones that you can get. It comes as an entire kit, and I'm going to go through all the things that I got here. But it's very sturdy and works really well. I've already been loading up some rounds, and I'm really impressed for the price in how well this press works. Also, I picked up a really good set of Lee 300 Blackout reloading dies. Now this comes as a 3-piece set. You can see I got the bullet seating die here in my press. But as we go through a round, I'm going to go back and I'm going to install my decapping and sizing die here. It also comes with a crimping die, which I have not used. Just an inexpensive 1cc powder measure. Also chamfer and deburr tool, which is a really cheap hand tool. You can get really expensive trimmers and chamfer tools and deburring tools, but for the money and learning, this works really well by hand. And also a primer pocket cleaner. This is the real cheap one made by Lee, and it works out real well. It's got two ends, one for large and small primers. Now also you're going to need some sizing lube. This Lee kit comes with a tube of sizing lube, which works really well. You just have to use your fingers to put it on. You can also use sprays. I went ahead and got a universal decapping die. This will be good to use if I'm just sort of mass depriming and cleaning up brass, especially converting 223 brass to 300 Blackout, and then also pistols and calibers and what have you. It comes with a pretty inexpensive powder scale, which I definitely will be upgrading at some point because it works pretty well, but this is a very rudimentary version here. And then I think one of the best features of the kit is this guy right here. This is the Lee Perfect Powder Measure. It's pretty inexpensive. It comes as part of this kit and it works really, really well. I have found it to throw really consistent charges, so I'm pretty impressed with this. Also, there's a Lee hand priming tool. It works pretty well. Interestingly, you also can prime on this press. It comes with both large and small primer attachments to prime on the press, but as for now, I'm using this hand priming kit, which works pretty well for me. I also have a micrometer. This one's a digital one to measure cases with. It works pretty well for me. You can really spend a lot of money on micrometers. You do want to make sure that you have one that's accurate, especially when you're reloading. Then specifically for 300 Blackout, as far as trimming cases, I went with the Little Crow Gunworks World's Finest Trimmer, which is an attachment for drills and is easily adjusted with Allen screws and trims cases really well. And for tumbling cases, I've got the Frankfurt Arsenal Quick and Easy Case Tumbler with corncob media and tumbler media additive made by Flitz, which works really well. But as you can see, it's not even plugged in and I've not even used it yet because my cases are already prepped, so I haven't needed to actually use it yet. But I probably will be throwing some 223 once fired brass in there at some point to get started on making some new cases. Now to get started reloading, you need to first get your cases prepped, and you got two different options for this. You can actually go ahead and buy cases that have already been prepped and resized from 223 brass and deprimed. You can find these on the internet. You're just going to pay more money for them that way. Or you can do them yourself using fired 223 brass. And the way that I make these cases is the pretty standard way that a lot of people do them. You can see this all over YouTube. You know, there's no need for me to do a long video on it, but it's using the Harbor Freight mini cutoff saw with a 300 Blackout cutting jig that you can buy from a guy on a forum called 300blackouttalk.com. And just go to the hand loading section and you'll see this 300 Blackout cutoff jig, and it works so well. It's really, really easy. I'm just going to do a couple of cases here to show you how easy this is. So there's two cases formed from fired 223 brass, and I have my jig set at 1.370 length, and I'm going to be going for a final length of like 1.363 after I go back and reform this using my forming and depriming die. So really, really easy. The cutoff wheel, you know, obviously leaves some burrs. You're going to need to chamfer and deburr this once you finally get it formed. Okay, now we have our forming and depriming die here set at the appropriate depth. Just go ahead and put a little bit of case lube on this case, and we're ready to form it and deprime it. So now we have a nice newly formed 300 Blackout case. You can see it's been deprimed, and our new length, it stretches usually a little bit in the forming process, 1.375, so we're going to need to take about 1/100th off of that with our trimming jig. So you just need to wipe the sizing lube off of your cases before you start trimming them with your trimmer. It'll trim much better that way. They specifically recommend that, you know, with using this trimmer that I use. Like I said, this is called the world's fastest trimmer. It attaches to any drill and works really well. I have mine set to cut to 1.365, give or take a couple of thousandths, which is what I like my cases to start out as. So this is made specifically for 300 Blackout. It's the only size case that you can cut with this particular trimmer. And it's really that simple. And when you're done, you have cases that are 1.365 in length, which is exactly what I want. 1.364. Perfect. And just the last thing I'll do here is just go and chamfer the inside of the cases. Deburr the outside. And we have cases that are now ready to be reloaded. And they look really nice too. I mean, I didn't even tumble these cases. These were once fired 223 brass that I shot at the range last weekend, and I didn't even tumble them at all. And just, you know, in the process of doing all this, they're nice and shiny again. So these are really nice, ready to go cases. Primers I'm going to be using are CCI small rifle number 400 primers. There are lots of options for primers. These are what I'm going with, and I'm going to be using the Lee small rifle hand priming tool. So I'm going to go ahead and get this loaded up, and we're going to load up 5 or 6 of these brass and go ahead and make some cartridges. So this hand priming tool is really easy to use. It comes with specific shell holders for different calibers. Number 4 is the 223 shell holder. Remember that you'll be using all 223 sized parts for these cases because they are 223 cases. So I'm using the number 4 here, and went ahead and loaded my primers into the hopper here. And you'll just hold this away from you. You want to point it away from you just in case a primer has an issue. And just do it at a 45-degree angle here. And that's primed. And I make it a habit of filling the primer after I do every single case to make sure that it seats at the appropriate depth. So there's one primed case, 2 primed cases, and so on and so on. Very easy. Now it's time to get our powder charge right. Now there's a few different powders that can be used for 300 Blackout. Ogden 110 would be my favorite choice. However, that's been near impossible to find. I was able to find some Winchester 296, which essentially is the same thing as H110. So that's what I have on hand here, but there are a variety of different powders and different loadings that can be used for 300 Blackout. So you'll just have to do your own research and come up with a good combination for what works with you. This is what I'm using here. I'm doing a load workup using recommended load data. That's another important point. Make sure that you go to whatever resource you have available for the particular projectile that you're using. These are Hornady 150 grain FMJ boat tail projectiles that I'm using. So either go to the Hornady load book, go to the Sierra website, or the Ogden website is the one I've been using, and make sure that you're using established load data, not somebody's recipe you found on the internet. And that's specifically why I'm not going to give anything specific that I'm doing here today, because I don't want anyone to go and try to copy what I'm doing here today. But I'm starting with a load workup, and I'm going to be shooting ladders to try to find the best load for this particular grain bullet and powder combination. So I'm starting on the low end at 15 grains of powder and working my way up from there. So using this Lee powder measure, I'm just going to verify that the powder charge that's being thrown is correct, and I've got this scale measure for 15, and I'm going to let it settle out here, and that looks pretty good. So I'll usually verify this several times before I actually start throwing a charge into a case, just to make sure. I'm a little bit particular about safety. Okay, now I know that my powder measure is throwing my desired charge. Go ahead and get my case that's been primed, and I'm going to throw a charge. I'm going to visually inspect and make sure that there is the powder inside the case and that it's the appropriate amount. You know, after I've done a few of these, I'm pretty familiar with where the powder should be sitting in the case. And I'll just go ahead and seat my bullet. And I've already pre-adjusted this die, so it should be where it was last night. I mean, I was throwing some of these bullets last night. Using this, you know, you just will you'll fine-tune your bullet seating depth using this knob on the top. That's my finished round, and now I'm just going to verify that my overall length is correct, and I'm shooting for an overall length here of 2.065, and I'm at 2.068, so I'm okay with that. This is a finished round, and everything looks good. I got powder inside. I can hear it when I shake it. Everything is nice and uniform, and it looks really great. And just quickly also, this is my load data that I use. I keep it saved on my iPad here. This is from the Hogden website for 300 Blackout. Basically every grain bullet you know, gives you all of their safe data that they recommend, from starting loads to maximum loads. You know, I use this for reference, and then also this is from the Sierra website for, you know, 150 grain FMJ boat tail right at the top. You know, they give you overall lengths and then also recommended starting powder charges. So this is documented safe data that I feel comfortable using. I highly recommend doing the same. Last thing that you're going to see me do here is I'm keeping really good records of what I'm doing here. So I got a load data book that I'm starting up for 300 Blackout. I'll do the same thing whenever I start loading up 223. But this is what I did last night, just sort of practicing my first set of cartridges that I loaded up. 300 Blackout load workup using these Hornady 150 grain FMJ boat tails. And I've got all of my measurements. You know, that way when I take these out to the range and I run my ladder test and I find my preferred load for my rifle, I'll have it documented, and going forward, if anything ever changes, you know, I can always go back and verify with my data. So that's a really short and really simple version of what I'm doing here, loading up 300 Blackout. It's just a document I put together, tallying up the cost of these rounds, you know, just to compare to like $1 a round, just to see how much money I'm saving here. Cases are free if you consider that they're 223 picked up brass that I'm cutting down myself. You know, my only cost is my startup cost, which is the cost of the cutting jig and the cutoff saw. Primers are about 3 cents each, you know, buying 1,000 at a time. Powder, about 4 cents per charge, if you figure I can get about 466 charges out of a pound of powder. Bullets are 20 cents each. I bought these in bulk, 700 of them for like 145 bucks. So total cost of each of these rounds, 150 grain Hornadys, is about 27 cents per round. So I'm saving a considerable amount of money there, and I'm much more likely to go out and shoot this rifle. Now I also do have 2 other loads that I'm working on. 125 grain Sierra Match King open tip match bullets. They're going to be considerably more expensive, about 45 cents a round, because this is a sort of a match bullet, a high accuracy bullet. And then my subsonics, which are 208 grain Hornady AMAXs, those are about 42 cents a round. So you do, you know, spend a good bit more there, but I mean, then again, compared to $1 a round, you know, you're still saving money and you're learning a lot, and this is incredibly fun. So that's just a quick look at what kind of money savings you're looking at here. So I hope that this was helpful for you if you're starting out reloading like me. You know, the allure of the 300 Blackout, but the prohibitive cost of shooting it has led me to this point, and I'm really glad that I've taken this step, because I'm really enjoying this and I'm learning a lot. So I would encourage you, if you're thinking about reloading, please do your homework, do your research, make sure that you're doing it safely. Use documented, safe data, you know, from the actual makers of the equipment that you're using, you know, not just from something you found on the internet. And get out and talk to people who do this and who know tricks of the trade. You know, there's so many little shortcuts and tricks that I'm going to learn eventually that I don't know right now. So I'm really enjoying this. Hopefully, if you decide to jump into reloading as well, you'll enjoy this as much as I have. So again, this is Mac with just a beginner's guide to reloading the 300 Blackout cartridge. And I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like, favorite, and subscribe. And as always, I'll be bringing you some more video footage of these rounds when I go out to the range and try them out. So thanks for joining me. Be safe, and we'll see you next time.